Welcome to this presentation on parents' trust in vaccines, which is a cross-linguistic study that we have performed. And what we want to look at today is the complex discursive construction of how parents formulate their trust in vaccines. In the media and public discourse, the topic of vaccine attitudes is often presented as skeptic citizens, which are the problematic ones on one side, and the trustful citizens on the other side. But this kind of image neglects that there are a lot of nuances and scalarity, and that there is complex deliberation when citizens explain their trust in vaccines. So what we wanted to do is look at this topic in an explorative study. And in this presentation, we will look at a rhetorical analysis of such explanation given in an online questionnaire. And we hope that this information that we have extracted could be relevant for science mediation and communicative strategies, and maybe national health systems and the way they want to service their citizens. This study was part of a larger study, a qualitative interview study on parents' opinions on child vaccination. This study was conceived before the pandemic, and we interviewed Italian, Brazilian, Danish, and Armenian parents. Actually, it fell during the first COVID wave, but it was before the arrival of vaccines. It was in the autumn of 2020. For this interview study, we designed a recruitment questionnaire where parents also were invited to score their trust in vaccines on a scale from 1, meaning no trust at all, to 10, meaning total trust. And they were also invited to explain this trust score in a free text. And we got 273 questionnaires, as I said, from both Danish, Brazilian, Armenian, and Italian parents. Our hypotheses were, when we analyzed these free texts, that as we have to do with non-expert citizens, the arguments would be based on personal experience, on arguing through own social status, like as a mother of 3, I'm convinced that vaccines are good for my children, bad for my children, anecdotal information, and we also expected a dominance of extreme scores at the pro and con side. Actually, our hypotheses were not at all validated. We collected a very broad sample of medium scores, and the data reflect a complex assessment process of arguments pro and con, and this is especially true for medium scores. Our analysis method is a grounded theory approach. That means that we developed our system in a data-driven, bottom-up way and elaborated a parametric scheme, which I present here. We have 3 parameters. The first is the argument structure, meaning is there a presence or absence of pro or con arguments in the free texts. And when you see the scores here in purple, pro, a con, and in between, it is not the score on the trust scale from 1 to 10, but it is only the presence or absence of arguments, like pro, vaccines fight diseases, and con, there are side effects. The second parameter in our rhetorical analysis was the source of the argument, whether we had to do with personal experience, like I'm vaccinated and have never been sick, personal expertise, like I'm a biologist, authority, where people refer to science, statistics, their pediatrician, or the national health system. And finally, acquired and accepted information, which covers information that is broad in the free text, but with no other source, and something like vaccines are efficient or vaccines are not efficient, these can be arguments pro or con vaccines. And the last parameter for our rhetorical analysis is modality, where we look at how are the utterances about vaccines stated, the arguments pro or con stated. Like, vaccines are efficient. This would be a categorical assertion where we have zero modality. On the other hand, if we have something like, I think that vaccines are efficient, we have here a kind of degree of probability where a citizen does not state it is like that, but they explain that it is their opinion, and we define this modality by it presupposes a cognitive process of deliberation. And in linguistics, this kind of modality is called epistemic. And then we have introduced a new kind of modality that is not yet found in the literature, which we call doxa. This implies a leap of faith and is realized by statements like, I trust in vaccines. Every time when we have trust as a noun, or to trust, trustful, faith, faithful, to believe, and so on, we have a modality that explains that the citizen actually has laid their trust in vaccines. Theoretically, doxa and epistemic modalities are different, but in reality, there can be a blurred borderline, of course, and possible overlap. What we have also found is a very interesting phenomenon. As our free text is a comment on a trust score, it is a meta text and has to be read together with the score. So we have found arguments, single arguments with no other comments in the text, like vaccines have side effects, which in principle is a contra-argument, but we found it together with scores like 1, 5, and 9, and in 1 it would explain why the citizen does not trust, in 5 it would explain why the citizen is a little bit in between, and in 9 it would simply explain why the citizen did not vote for 10. So you have to read it together with the score. And here a panorama about on the Italian scores. And I have to see what I say now is only tendencies, because you can see here on the left side the medium scores, which go from 5 to 8. And actually in Italian, we only have one who scored 1, who did not trust at all. And the rest goes from medium scores to higher scores. And on the other hand, we have scores 9 and 10, which would be the high scores. And you can see here on the medium score side that arguments are very much pro and con at the same time, which are these medium purple colors. In the source column, you can have accepted information. That means information that you do not say where you get it from, and zero modalization. That means statements that are not I think or I believe. On the other hand, you have here a different color picture. You have very often the very dark purple for just pro argument, or even no argument at all, meaning that people are so sure in their case that they do not even see it necessary to put an argument into it. Very often you have also the dark blue authority source, and here suddenly the doxa modalization is more frequent, like in this light orange, light yellow. So what can we conclude from this? We can conclude that the rhetoric of non-expert citizens is complex. It reflects a process of deliberation and assessment of the arguments. It's not a simple question of pro and con, and there are actually few references to personal experience and anecdotal evidence. The next step would be content analysis of the pro and con arguments, like which arguments are more often that side effects or that vaccines are not efficient, for example. And we hope that this also could be interesting for science mediation and national health systems. And now I want to thank you very much for your attention.